Ciao, ciao. This is Pietro from the limited edition, and this is the Independence. Is your YouTube broadcast where we bring you the protagonists of the world of independent watchmaking. As if you're watching this, we suspect you may have a passion for independent watchmaking, and we are privileged to be able to officially retail over 60 brands and makers, solo makers from the world of artisanal watchmaking. I couldn't be doing this on my own because besides the guest that we're going to have today, which I'm going to introduce in a minute, our editor, Johnny McElleron, a watchmaking expert and specializing micro brands, is my co-host in this series. And Johnny, who do we have today? A really, really good guest, somebody that we know from the past for being the coordinator of the UK Red Bar branch. Also famous voice of Scottish watches, but now involved with Horage, one of the most exciting independent manufacturers out there. And let's welcome Dave Sharp together.
Indeed. Dave, how you doing? You got your mic on mute there, my friend, but it's, there we go. So, yeah, Pietro, Horage. The word disruptive is very often used in watchmaking, especially with micro brands coming along. And they're using the word disruptive because they're promising that they're going to change the world. Horage are the real deal. They are, as you say, they're disruptive. They're a young company run by a team of young owners that are really pushing to the forefront of technical achievement, what they're doing in-house. And so it's exciting to have David along and tell us a little bit about the journey and explain what we just looked at there at the top of the episode there with the video.
Absolutely. So thank you guys for having me. I only joined the Horage team relatively recently. That was a tongue twister. Back in February, but having known the guys, Andy and Landon, for a good number of years, as you mentioned, Pietro, I've been doing the podcast and Red Bar, and I've known the guys from kind of that scene for a while. But I've also got a bit of synergy with the guys there. Andy and Landon both have kind of a history within the cycling industry, and that was where I spent most of my professional life. So there was a bit of synergy in terms of we've been in the same places at the same time. So when they made the offer, I jumped at it.
You were one of the first to actually expose Horage. I have to say, I discovered Horage through you and through Ricky at Scottish Watches back in the days. I absolutely clearly recall that. So it's amazing. You are kind of closing a journey. You believed in the brand so much that you ended up actually now collaborating with them.
No, absolutely. And, we, as you say, it was really, I guess, down to Landon, who he predominantly looks after the marketing narrative, the kind of how to, push the name and push the ideas of Horage into the public domain. And he did a great job of, I guess, reaching out to the slightly left field channels as opposed to the more mainstream watch channels, because as we all know, the watch industry is a interesting place. We'll call it interesting, and doors can be opened and doors can be closed depending on who you are, what brand you are, etc. So Landon had to work hard as a new style brand and a new brand to the market, had to work hard to get some recognition out there, and he showed stuff to us at the podcast, and we liked some of it, we didn't like some of it, we loved some of it, we hated some of it, and we were very honest about it. And they were very kind of welcoming of the feedback, because they said, well, no one loves everything, and that actually means that we're doing it right. And they took it in a very constructive way, as opposed to being, oh, how dare you say something negative about us, which all too often in the watch industry can be a challenge.
Absolutely.
So they were.
I was going to say they come across as very determined, because as Johnny was saying, yes, it's a young brand run by young engineers and designers that we have learned to know across the years, with very, very big ambitions. And we will explain how these ambitions are actually panning out and already being achieved, but with a very humble and modest approach at the same time in terms of getting feedbacks, as you're saying.
No, absolutely. And as much as you are absolutely correct that I guess the engineering team and the watchmaking team is pretty young. It certainly makes me feel old every time I see them. You know, they're all in their 20s, maybe at most in their early 30s. And it's probably 20 years since I was even remotely in my 30s. So I kind of, I look at them and think, yeah, these guys are young. And it's a mixed team of, you know, there's guys there, there's girls there. They've come from a very kind of well-educated background, whether it's in engineering, whether it's in CAD, whether it's in watchmaking. But you've also got people in the business like Andy, who, you know, Andy's ages with me, slightly older, has seen enough of the world to understand the pitfalls that can also be there, and he understands those. You have Sue, who's there, who is, you know, is Andy's wife, but is also, you know, one of the very much the leaders of the business. She has a vast and long established record working within the watch industry, whether it be on the OEM side, supplying parts, sourcing parts, etc., for the wider watch industry that we know. So she comes with an absolute wealth of knowledge across all spheres, whether it be Switzerland, Asia, all the different places that parts for watches are made. And she knows it, which is the kind of information that, frankly, you have to have. And you can't buy it and you can't learn it. You just have to have lived it. And so we've got a real...
No, sorry to cut you, but it's very interesting what you're saying. In terms of the engineering background, yes, we are talking about a relatively young brand, but these people come from a journey that has taken the best part of 20 years to develop what they have developed and to be at the point where they are now, where they are actually considered a fully fledged, not only brand, but also in-house manufacturer, with more or less many secrets about also who they make parts or movements for, and with this ambition of actually becoming one of the very important movement suppliers in the market, which is a bit of like the holy grail in watch industry, you know, as Johnny taught me a long time ago.
Yeah, I think there's been, you know, the company, it's a bit like an iceberg, I guess. People only are probably seeing that little bit that sticks above the water at the moment in terms of, oh, that's a brand new brand, it's new to me. But as you mentioned, there's many years of work and stuff that happened under the waterline to get to this stage. And I guess the company's also had a couple of different phases and a couple of different trajectories that it was looking at. Is this a viable route? Is that a viable route? Until it probably only in the last maybe 5-6 years has begun to find its feet in terms of who we are and what we actually want to do and what we feel is a kind of sustainable longer term model, which is with the brand Horage being a brand in its own right, you know. So it's gone through a few gestations, but you know, we are where we are today through a little bit of trial and error, a lot of planning, and frankly a huge amount of hard work by you know, Sue, Andy and Landon. And
before we come to the reason why we're here today, Johnny, Horage also set a bit of a record when they launched their in-house made tourbillon, and they had a fantastic result with the first two editions. The first one, tourbillon 1, and the second one was the Lensman 1. For both, you sold something like over 200 pieces, Dave, and it was a manufactured tourbillon at a price level of, you know, between the first and the second one, 7,000-8,000, depending on whether you were an early bird subscriber or not. Johnny, that was impressive.
When I was tripping over myself at the start and using the expression about being a disruptive brand, that's exactly what I had in mind there. The tourbillon is over the last 20 years, since it's risen back into popularity, and it's been a feature mostly with you know, very haute horlogerie pieces, and then over time it has been found in pieces like Tag even created a tourbillon at about 15,000, I believe it was back at the time. Horage came in and even blew that out of the water, coming in at nearly.
I remember when Gégère Lecoultre, I think it was 12 years ago, launched a first tourbillon in steel at 40,000 Swiss francs, and nobody could believe it then. So yeah, sorry, carry on, Johnny.
So that's the definition of being disruptive. That they've come in, they've come in under the radar and just popped up with this extraordinary tourbillon that is actually manufactured in-house and includes some very high-tech innovation as well, with the use of silicone in the regulating organ. And so not only is it, like there are, don't get me wrong, there are other ways to do it. They could have gone and got imported, let us say, movement and or the components, but no, they have very, very single-mindedly set out to do everything on their own, or as much as be damned as is possible to do.
And a lot of that came around through necessity as much as anything. You know, many people in the watch industry will tell you it quite often is a fool's errand to decide I want to make an in-house movement from the ground up. It's a labour of love as opposed to a commercially sensible decision to make. Let's put it like that. You know, there's lots of extremely good off-the-shelf movements that can be had for the watch industry. Let's not belittle that fact, but sometimes having access to certain movements, certain technologies, certain materials is not the easiest thing in the world, because sometimes those are exclusive to given brands, or they are only allowed to be given to X number of people. And our tourbillon project really did start probably in a slightly more traditional method, which was, I guess, co-developing a tourbillon movement with one of the big Swiss kind of movement manufacturers and trying to come up with, and trying to come up with something. And then through a combination of circumstances, time, really nothing of any fault of our own, change of ownership, change of people at the top, change of kind of mindsets, they decided to discontinue that relationship and discontinue that project. So really by that stage it was, well, either it goes in the bin and we've wasted quite a lot of people's time and effort and work, or do we pick up the baton and keep running? It's a bit like in the middle of a relay race. If someone drops a baton, you instinctively think you've lost, but if you don't pick it up and keep running, you never know, you might win. And you know, we attacked it head on, and we attacked it with a very competent group of young engineers, as you mentioned, Pietro. And in pretty much a record-breaking time, we believe, we managed to bring a product to market that is not only quite innovative and typically seen as difficult to do, but is coming in at a very, very aggressive price point and is a stable and kind of maturing platform. This one you see here is using the tourbillon that was first launched in the, funnily enough, the tourbillon 1 model, which I think there was in and around 250, 260 units of these ones we ended up selling. It was only open for a given period of time. And what we said was, however many people order within that window, we will get one of these watches. So that's what we did with that. And we learned a lot, and there was a couple of kind of iterative design process updates, etc., went along the road with this one. But that's culminated in us launching quite recently, just at the end of last year, the second generation of, or I say second generation, but the second model of tourbillon watch, which is the Lensman 1, effectively using the same movement. And we have a Lensman 1.1, which is about to launch for the people that missed out on the Lensman 1. That will be, in fact, was just announced a couple of days ago. The one you're showing on the screen here, that's the one with the red indices on there as well. So it's got a red lume fill indus, which is slightly different from the original Lensman 1, which was a kind of all black dial. The big thing about this watch is it's got a bit of a photography theme in terms of the design around the kind of edge of the bezel and the edge of the case. And you also have a Cyclops magnifier over the cutout in the dial for the tourbillon cage. So you get that little bit of additional magnification being shown on there as well. So yeah, you can see again here this kind of etymology that is built into it. So you've got a crown that resembles a little bit like that traditional pusher or shutter button on your camera. And you've got these markings that are kind of reminiscent of people. So it's got that theme and kind of design language from photography, but that's not to say you need to be a photographer to love this watch. If you like the look of it, you know, it's not as niche as people think it is. A lot of people sometimes think when you take muse from something for a watch that it's narrowing its kind of appeal, but there's plenty of watches out there with very bizarre bezels for your tachymeters or your pulsometers. I don't think most people use those in their day-to-day life either.
I think it's a very, like with Horage and the Lensman series, it's a very consistent theme. And what we're about to look at over the next 15, 20 minutes or so is how that theme has been expanded and further integrated into the design language of the new pieces in particular. But it's still, as I say, it's consistent and it's not a gimmick. There is an actual... there is a strong connection with Horage, with London and photography, and he's clearly very, very into his photography. We'll even look at some of the images that have been created by Brian Griffin, who is behind one of the editions that we're going to be looking at shortly. But the Tourbillon one, it's the 1.1 Lensman is. Pietro, my thinking, it's a hell of a lot of watch.
Absolutely. And I wanted to recap a little bit for those that are trying to make sense of what's happening on the Tourbillon side. So there was a Tourbillon 1 edition, David, correct me if I'm wrong, which was a limited edition. You sold over 250 pieces. Then the Lensman that started this concept of photography-inspired timepieces, and that was the second Tourbillon that was launched. That was sold out as well, and you made 201 pieces, I think. And now there's a limited edition. This week there is an early bird offer that I'll let you announce as well on this new Tourbillon Lensman 1.1 that Johnny just showed to us.
Correct. So as you say, the first Tourbillon 1 model, it was a limited edition, but not necessarily limited by we're only making 100 or 200. It was limited by however many people ordered within a given window. That was the final number. It panned out just over 250. We then issued the Lensman 1. The Lensman 1 was capped at 200 units. So it was from case number 1 to case number 200 was that. That was announced and released at the back end of last year, I think maybe around about October time. I remember.
Must have included the prototype when I say 201.
Yeah, I mean, luckily all of our prototypes are zero case numbers, so we don't kind of impinge into the numbers. But on that one, we also have been, or Landon certainly has been working on a coffee table photo book for quite a long time. It's been definitely been a labour of love for Landon. And as you rightly mentioned, he has a love of photography. He worked as a photographer in his youth. So in his kind of early 20s, he was very much in the skateboard scene and worked as a photographer in that area. And we also have other people within Horage as a business. We have some die-hard kind of amateur photographers, some who are very much about the kind of artistic side of photos, and some who are very much about the equipment, much like watches. Some people like the intricacies of how it works, and some people just like what you actually have on your wrist. The photography world is the same, and people think the watch world is full of people who are quite geeky. The photography world is way worse. Let me assure you of that. I enjoy taking pictures. I am by no means a competent photographer. I'm the classic person that uses the A button and presses a button, holds it slightly, and then presses it until it takes a photo. But it's still fun. I like the equipment, and as you know, Ricky's into his photography as well. And there's been many a photographer born of the watch world. People who get into macro photography actually because they're into watches and they want to start taking real detailed macro photography. You can look all over Instagram. Plenty of people learn their craft after watches. But as you say, the Lensman was 200 pieces for the Lensman 1. But we always said when we launched that watch that there would be a maximum run of Lensman 1 style watches of 500 pieces, but that Lensman 1 would be limited to 200. And everyone who got one of those would also get a copy of this coffee table book that Landon has been working on and producing, which would be signed, limited edition, and numbered to match the case number of their watch as well. So it's a nice kind of additional story, and that book kind of narrates the history of Horage, shows lots of pictures from quite early on, sketches, all sorts of interesting things. There will be a version of that book that will become available to purchase later on the store, a non-limited edition version of it, but that will come later as well. But we also decided, as you mentioned, to offer an additional Lensman 1.1 because, funnily enough, as always happens, when you've closed and you've sold out, the number of people request, I would like to buy a Lensman 1, please. I'm afraid they're sold out. How can I buy a Lensman 1? Okay, well, if you wait a little longer, there'll be something coming along. And as a company who loves to be open as well, we are very open to all of the clients and to the world about what we do. We even said to people who'd bought a Lensman 1, if you actually prefer the 1.1 with the red numerals, when we can change your order over, and we've had a small number of people who have moved their order over because they prefer the red. So that's where that was. And then there was always planned to be a partner, I guess is the best way to call it, to this watch. So when we launched the Lensman 1, we were originally going to launch the Lensman 1 and the 2, the Lensman 2 together. But for a couple of reasons, we didn't actually launch them together. But we have just announced this week the Lensman 2, which is the, I guess, partner watch to this one, which looks, it has to be said, a little bit different.
Absolutely. It's this is the edition. It's actually probably not the right one to start off, although maybe it is, because it's the whole photographic inspiration, the theme and everything comes from this, because it's inspired by, or it's a tribute to one of London's hero photographers, is Brian Griffin. Brian Griffin is a gentleman who has been again pushing the boundaries of photography for the last 30 odd years. I can remember when I was looking actually through some of the images that he had been responsible for. I can remember this being an album that I had bought back in the mid-1980s, A Broken Frame by Depeche Mode. Going to see them in a couple of months. Looking forward to that.
Amazing.
Yeah. And also some of our heroes. Pietro is Iggy Pop. There was Susie Sue of Susie and the Banshees. And also into film history with the Return of the Jedi with Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, of course, as well as some, urban scenes and things, images that are world famous. And so
yes.
There's a great source of inspiration there, a lot to work with, and to be able to bounce off this reputation. This is where the Lensman has come from, the Lensman 2, and that's what we're just there. Go ahead.
Yep, that's it there. So you're right. Although if I maybe step back one step beyond that, was for sure, we'll get to talk about Brian, but this one also came around from the kind of the desire to try and incorporate something that, to our knowledge, hasn't been done before. Now, obviously, there's lots of watches out there in terms of bezel functionality. Things like your classic Navi timers from Zinn or from Breitling, for example, where you can calculate, direction or fuel loads or speeds, etc. Still a watch that's commonly available, and quite a lot of people are very well aware of that watch. Not exactly the most functional bezel for most people these days. Slide rules went out with the arc, shall we say? You've got different bezels on chronographs. You've got you mentioned tachymeters. You've got your pulsometers, and really we wanted to try and incorporate a bezel function that could be useful for photographers. And obviously, in this day and age of digital photography, and even pre-digital, when we had film cameras, but they still had automatic moves and they had electronics built into them, things like mechanical light meters went by the wayside because the camera did it for you. But there's still people who like to shoot in good old-fashioned full mechanical and want to use these. And this is basically a kind of nod to the use of mechanical light meters to work out exposure, etc. So as you can see on this picture, actually, you've got up. If you look in the kind of rehot ring there, you've got the different icons along there. You've got bright sun, you've got cloudy, you've got sunset, you've got incandescent light, you've got indoor light, you've got nighttime. and then you've got your ISOs on the actual bezel. It's a bidirectional bezel, it can turn both ways, and you can set your ISO level to the given light conditions. And then you can see around the bottom there on this image, you can see your shutter speeds and your f-stops. And as you adjust it to set your ISO, for example, to a given light condition, it will give you the area of shutter speed and or f-stops that you want to use. So for talking sake on this one that you've got up, it's showing an ISO of 100 set to, for example, the bright sunshine. Then say you were wanting to shoot some fast action sport, for example, so you'd want to use probably quite a high shutter speed, maybe around about 1,000. So if you look on the bezel there, you can see it at 1,000. For your shutter speed, you'd want to be at 5.6 f-stop. So it is a very functional tool. Will most people use this? No, because most people will use their phone for taking photos. But it's a nice nod to the heritage and history of photography with a bezel functionality that does something a little bit different and interesting. And the whole kind of...
sorry, but you have turned the inspiration that was initially only on the aesthetics, like in the Lensman 1, to actually a function that is an easy thing to say, but by the look of it, it must have taken ages to figure out.
Yeah, absolutely. And like it's a talented bunch of guys that really, I guess they do a lot of this work as well in their own time. These are guys that kind of they wake up at 6 in the morning or 4 in the morning with some bright idea and like, I reckon I could make this work. The guys will come in with something they've printed out in their 3D printer at home because they had a brainwave in the middle of the night about how to do something, and they come in with some gargantuan 3D printed model of a proof of concept. So these guys are constantly thinking that way. They also took quite a lot of aesthetic inspiration on this watch from the days when that type of functionality was more commonly used. So back in the 50s and the 60s, and it's got this kind of nod to the likes of the medium format Hasselblad cameras, which in their day were extremely famous. It was the cameras that went to the moon landings. It was the cameras of its moment, especially in that 50s, 60s, 70s period. So it kind of has that design language nodding back. And the case construction, you'll have seen that. If you bring one of the pictures up again, people will notice on the case, you've got the polished part and you've got this kind of black area on the case. And on that, what we have is the main actual case of the watch, which is the black part. And if you have maybe an image on the side, you can see it, or I've got one here that I can hold up to camera. Yeah, you can see it there with the black sides. That part is actually an aluminium part. So the case itself is aluminium. And again, Andy, myself, coming from the watch, or from the bike industry, the cycling industry, aluminium needs to be treated to give it some kind of protection, but also you want to make sure that it's got real good durability. And one of Andy's big things was he said he never wanted to do a black coated watch, or as we probably know it, a PVD or a CVD watch. But this one uses hard anodizing. So it's a black hard anodization on the aluminium. And compared to something like a CVD or a PVD coat on steel, it's a much more durable, much harder, much deeper penetrating treatment on the aluminium. So it's super durable. And then the polished exoskeleton that's around this watch is grade 5 titanium. So that is a machined part that's separate from the black aluminium case, all made out of a grade 5, machined out of grade 5 titanium. And then the black aluminium part is fitted into that. And then between the lugs, there is 2 on each side, one at each lug effectively, so 4 in total, little Torx retainer screws that screw in to retain that, so it becomes effectively, it's an exoskeleton case, so it's a titanium exoskeleton over an aluminium frame, which makes it super durable and tough because all the contact points are titanium and they're tough, but super light because the main bulk of that case is aluminium, or aluminum for our American friends. Crown on there is titanium.
Sorry, Dave, and then we go to some more details. But do you remember the days where the argument with Horage was everyone was waiting for the brand to really bloom on the back of incredible engineering abilities and mechanical, proposals in general. On the design side, we were always waiting for that quid on top of what we were seeing back in the days. these last releases, they seem to fill that gap in an amazing way.
I absolutely agree. As you know, even as myself looking from outside, previous to me doing this role, and now a lot of the early pieces, especially, you know, the Omniums and, you know, all of these watches, they were lovely, lovely watches, and they still are to this day. But I guess they didn't have a huge amount of DNA that made it specifically Horage. And I think for me, the Superseed, which I'm wearing, I think you might be wearing as well, that was, I think, the first one where the brand began to have a bit of a direction that was different. Yes, it's still quite mainstream. It's an integrated stainless steel bracelet sports watch, I guess, at the end of the day. Yeah, so again, not hugely unique, but it began to have a bit of a stamp of something that said, this is Horage. But certainly with the Tourbillon 1, the Lensman 1, and the Lensman 2, we're beginning to produce some product that is very distinctively Horage. It's not really been done by anybody else.
Totally agreed. Can we maybe recap then the offers that are happening this week? Because they are limited.
Sure.
You like early subscriptions because also it's a great way of developing then the products on the back of real demand and not just, you know, wild guesses. So there are two launches, Lensman 1.1 and the exposure calculator on the Lensman 2 that we're seeing here in the 3 different versions. Do you want to give us a bit of a recap? Why should people think to order now? What are the timings for the deliveries eventually? And where can people order? Can you recap a little bit everything?
Absolutely. So effectively within the offering, there are 3, you can see the 3 colorways there. There's one which is limited edition, which is the silver dial. That is the Brian Griffin edition. That's strictly limited to 100 pieces. You then have the non-limited pieces, which is either available in a black dial, as you can see here, or in the bright yellow dial. Those two have no specific limitation to them. In terms of the straps as well, there's 2 different strap colors. There's the black strap and there's the yellow strap, which you can select at a point of order. It looks like a canvas strap here, but actually the strap is a new strap that we've developed, and it's a woven rubber strap. So it has that appearance of kind of a Kevlar-y canvas style strap, but it's actually rubber. So it's very durable sports strap, but with a really lovely kind of Alcantara leather liner in it, which makes it very comfortable.
I was very impressed. I was very impressed when you showed it to me in London the other.
It's actually, yeah, later on I'll show you with the one I have here how flexible the strap is as well. Then what you have is, so you have 100 pieces of the Brian Griffin now, and you have the other pieces. Now, in terms of the offer initially, these will go on sale from May the 9th at 2 p.m. Swiss time. So that's 1 p.m. UK and whatever time you are at in the world, for a period of 72 hours. So from the 9th of May through to the 12th of May. And during that window, they will be up for sale, and you can buy the standard edition, the black or the yellow, for 4,900 Swiss francs, or you can buy the Brian Griffin edition for 5,900 francs, so 1,000 Swiss francs more. Now, those prices include taxes, duties, and shipping wherever you are in the world. And the reason for the 1,000 Swiss franc difference is not just because it's a limited edition. So obviously part of it is, yes, there's only 100 pieces of it, and you have that silver dial. But it will also come with a platinum, so a PT950 solid platinum micro rotor will come in the Brian Griffin edition as standard. You can see in this picture here, the platinum edition rotor. The standard editions will have a tungsten rotor with a black coating on it. So you'll have a slightly less expensive in terms of material costs a rotor in the standard one, which accounts for, to be honest, the vast majority of the price differential. And also with the Brian Griffin edition, some of the photos you did show earlier on, Johnny, there, but those pictures, there will be a variety of sets. So there'll be a film-orientated set, a music set, a portrait set, and a few different, I think there'll be 5 or 6 different sets. And you get to select one of those sets that will have, I believe it's 4 or 5 of those images as prints. And they're not just little prints like postcards. These will be proper sized prints that again will be signed, and they will be numbered as well. So you'll have all of that comes along with your watch. There's going to be on the Horage kind of community forum, there's going to be, for the different sets, maybe 8 to 10 images that could make those sets up, and the community get to vote on which 4 or 5 make the final cut to be in those sets as well. So if you want to get involved with that, jump onto the Horage forum and have a look and make your vote if you want to get in on the action there. So you get quite a nice set. You get the photo set, you get the platinum rotor, and you get the limited edition kind of iteration for that extra 1,000. So that's in that first pre-order window. There'll then be a second pre-order window, which is going to happen in June. And that, I believe, starts on the 6th of June through to the 9th of June. Again, a 72-hour window, where same offering, but the watch goes up slightly in price. So if you want to get the absolute best price you can get for the watch, get in the May pre-order window. If you miss it or you want to wait, think about it a bit longer, for sure, that's your choice. But there will be a slight price increase, so that will go up to 5,450 on the standard edition and 6,450 on the Brian Griffin, as long as, of course, they don't all sell out on that first round, which they may very well do. That is an entire possibility, and by the interest so far, quite possible. Anyone who orders in those 2 windows, the orders will start to be shipped and delivered from round about late October this year, with most of the orders being shipped probably through November, maybe into December. We're always upfront with people. Building watches isn't the easiest thing in the world, and when you have to send movements back and forward between cost, for example, and regulation and tests and timing, I always joke that when you're trying to produce a product that's all about accuracy and timekeeping, the one thing you can never really do is give an accurate delivery date, which is somewhat annoying, but that's part and parcel of it, because we don't want to rush them out. And anyone who completely misses it and just wants to wait and pay their money when the watch is actually available, round about October, once we've delivered all of the pre-orders and everyone who ordered a watch, you'll be able to buy one as a stock watch piece at that point. I would, touch wood, not think there'll be any Brian Griffins by that point, but there may still be some of the standard ones available at that point, and that will come in at 6,900. So you've got a difference, a kind of delta.
They're not limited, obviously, as you said. Yeah.
So you've got a price delta of 1,000 francs. So 4,900 is the cheapest you can get the standard edition. Somewhere in the middle if you're in the June pre-order round, and then you're at 5,900 for a standard edition come stock availability. Alongside that, obviously, there is the Lensman 1.1. So anyone that missed the Lensman 1 and wants a tourbillon, that is also available at the same order windows. It's gone up a mere 100 Swiss francs from the tourbillon 1. So it is at 8,000, I think it's 8,000, let me check. Yeah, 8,990 Swiss francs is what that one is on pre-order at. But anyone who currently bought a tourbillon 1 and wants to add a tourbillon 2 to their collection, they should keep their eye on their email over the next few days, because we will be sending them a discount code. And that discount code lets them get a bonus incentive. So I think it's around 390 Swiss franc discount off of their Lensman 2 when they order it. So they get a little bit of a loyalty discount for being, loyal to the brand. Or if you decide you want a Lensman 1.1 and a Lensman 2 and you buy it as a kind of kit or a box set, you can also benefit from that discount there as well. When it goes live.
Of course, if you bought from the limited edition, your tourbillon Lensman 1, get in touch with us. We'll give you all the guidelines on how to make the best of this generous offering.
Absolutely. And I was going to say, anyone that's interested, obviously, you're hosting us. You can approach Pietro at the limited edition. These guys act as a concierge for us, and they do a great job. And we spend time talking about these things. Pietro's WhatsApping me, asking questions. He knows what he's talking about. You can approach these guys if you want to place an order via Pietro. He can deal with all of the nuances of the order for you. They can still offer the discount if you've either bought a Lensman 1 and you want a Lensman 2, or if you want to buy both, he's your man. Obviously, the main portal, if you need any information, you want to go deep diving, Horage.com, jump on there. every piece of technical nonce that you want is on there as well, so you can go through all of that. I guess the only thing we didn't quickly touch on was the movement that is in this watch, which
Absolutely. Before we do that,
sure.
For those that fantasizing about a set, Dave, because there's a lot of purpose for sets here, and then so we can complete the offering, and then we move on to the movement.
Sure. Yeah. So in terms of the sets, as I say, that's, I guess, watch collectors probably fall into one of two sets. They're either they buy what they like and they're not bothered about having things that match. They just like what they like, or people quite often like to be completists. And, that's why we thought, and we've already had quite a few people who have Lensman 1s in order said, oh, I mean, it says Lensman 2, so of course I have to have one because it's part of the same set. There's others who, will or won't like this. I think it's fair to say I love it. I'm not typically a huge square watch person, but actually at 39 mil and at 10 mil thick or just under 10 mil thick, it wears extremely well. Some folk will love it. Some folk it won't float your boat because you don't like square watches. But anyone who wants a box set, the option's there for you as well. And depending on which one you opt for the box set, if you have a Lensman 1 and you want a Brian Griffin, you still got all the additional Brian Griffin kind of goodies with it, like the platinum rotor and the signed prints, and you still get the discount code on that one as well. So you can kind of really build the package within reason from whatever is actually available. There's not any real limitations. That way we've tried to make it as open as possible.
Fantastic. And yes, please get in touch with us. We have all the specs and recaps to guide you through this. We started this broadcast saying that Horage is well on the way to change the panorama of movement making, especially in engineering movements in-house. These timepieces laterally are also equipped with some of the newborn in the Horage movement calibers collection. Do you want to talk us through?
Yeah, so I can probably hold this up, and there's probably images as well. So this is the K2 movement. So there we go. There's a better picture, probably less reflection on there. This is our, I guess, second generation of automatic movement, but also the third generation movement in terms of first we had the K1, then we started work on the K2, but the tourbillon came out, or the K2, KTOU for the tourbillon, that came out as the second movement, and then we have the K2 movement. This is a modern, ground-up designed micro rotor based automatic movement here. So very thin. The beauty of micro rotor is that you get that thinness that you can't ever quite get from having the central mounted main rotor on there. Fully silicon, so you've got the silicon spring and the silicon escapement work on there as well. You've got a couple of options. Technically, there'll now be 3 options on the rotor. We'll have done a gold rotor, which is a tungsten rotor with a gold plating, which was used on the super seats. We have the solid platinum rotor, and we will have the tungsten rotor with the black rhodium coating on it as well, which will be in the Lensman 2. This watch also, in terms of the movement, 72 hours power reserve, so a really solid modern power reserve. Like lots of the legacy movements out there maybe have a shorter 36 to 42 hour power reserve. So you're getting significantly more. You're moving into your 3-day power reserves here. And especially for a micro rotor is a pretty impressive piece of engineering to get that kind of power out of a micro rotor movement. Lots of baked in functionality. So you can have date, big date, you can have small seconds, center seconds, you can have power reserve, you can have day-night indicators, you can have GMT functionalities, and all of those functionalities can be added into this movement, having very, very little difference to the actual overall fitness of the movement.
I can show it on my Super Seed.
Yeah.
Here you go. Here you
so that's one. Yeah, the Super Seed there is that's got quite a lot of functions. You've got power reserve at 12 o'clock. You've got day-night indicator at 9 o'clock. You've got the date at 3 o'clock. You've got center seconds, time, and the GMT hand there as well. And this watch coming in at 9.98 millimeters thick for a 200 meter water-resistant watch. I think it's something to be quite proud of, to be honest.
Mine was a prototype because I have the tungsten rotor here in this case.
No, that looks like I think that's a platinum one you've got in there. That's is it the shiny silver? Is it quite a bright silver? I think that's
because the tungsten. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I think that's a platinum rotor you've got in there, Pietro.
Yeah. I'm not sure if Pietro, are you...
I think Pietro's gone frozen on us.
He might have. That's
he has indeed.
Wait,
he's back. He's back. No, I was saying I think that's a platinum rotor you have in there then, Pietro. And the advantage, some folks say, what is the advantage of platinum? So aside from there's the aesthetic element, platinum has got a lovely kind of colour and hue to it. Some people like the idea of having a solid precious metal rotor, but there is actually an engineering upside to it, which is, as platinum is one of the most dense metals, tungsten is heavy, don't get me wrong, but there is around an 8-degree advantage to it, which basically means that it needs slightly less movement of the wrist to actually actuate the winding mechanism using a platinum rotor. So if you've got quite a sedentary lifestyle, or you've got a desk job where you're not really moving around very much, a platinum rotor in the watch will help to just maintain its power reserve and wind a little bit more efficiently. We're not talking a whole lot here. Don't be thinking it's going to be, markedly more.
I just feel more empowered than before. I thought I had a tungsten and actually have a platinum. Happy days.
There we go. They are happy days.
Than you thought you were.
Yeah, and as I say, I think it's some folk like the gold one because actually on the super seeds, there's some kind of gold detailing on the movement as well, and some folk like the gold rotor because they think aesthetically it sits more nicely with some of the other kind of gear work within that movement. But some folk love the platinum, so it's whatever takes your fancy. To be honest with you,
how many brands do you have knocking at the door to get movement, Dave? At this point in time,
do you know what's interesting? We get courted for sure because, as you know more than most, there is not a lot of commercially available micro rotor movements with silicon technology available. Full stop, and there's certainly not many available that can be used in watches at the price point that we kind of put out to market. The Esther's micro rotors, but they're usually quite significant 5-figure price tags come with them as well. Also, we at this point in time, we've made a conscious decision that we're not supplying these K2 movements to anybody at the moment outside of ourselves, for the simple fact that we have back orders of super seeds. We've got the Lensman 2 coming, and frankly, it's better to fulfill our own orders and our own clientele with our movement and our product. We don't want to be that guy that's like, oh, hang on a minute, I've been waiting months in my watch. Why are you selling movements to this guy when I've still got my watch to come? So I can rest assure you that every movement that gets made that's K2 ends up in a watch that's ours, that's going to one of our clients that's waiting on it. So don't think
you can't argue with that.
We cannot. But we get some lovely emails from a lot of small independent watchmakers who probably are quite like us mindset wise, but maybe don't have access to the people and or the machinery or the equipment to physically engineer their own movements, and have kindly reached out to us, and we've had to be polite and say, sorry, at this point, we don't have that as an option. For the future, who knows?
Pretty amazing and impressive, Johnny. We went through the strategic significance, we went through the new product launches, and now we have touched upon the competitive advantage that these guys are really building on the market, which again is a fruit of work of nearly 20 years. But at this point in time, Johnny, can we say, Horage, when we talk a lot about value for the money you pay in watchmaking, not because, of course, we discard, watchmaking as being too expensive at times, etc., because every brand has a different USP and a different DNA, and high-end horology will always be at the pinnacle of artisanal watchmaking. But with some industrial and engineering cleverness, intelligence, Johnny, these guys have managed to make quality, in-house made horology available and affordable for a much larger fraction of people that are in love with the passion for watchmaking than what we were used in the past. Would you agree with this statement, Johnny?
I think if you listen to what we've talked about over the last, it's been an absolutely amazing listen. Even from my point of view, to hear the whole Horage story. I come out of this thinking that we're looking at a young brand, as I use the word. They're disruptive. They're absolutely ambitious. there is a sort of a 360-degree holistic philosophy to the brand. There's so much, consideration goes into every one of these launches. The reason for each piece existing and its connection with the brand and it's how it integrates with the brand's DNA. It's an amazing story, and I think
very far from the old trick of just launching a new dial. Very, very far. Everything is very thought, very, very deeply, and that really comes across. I totally agree, John. I totally agree.
That's what I see there, and I think customers are buying into this, and there, as you mentioned, the Horage community, etc. There's on all fronts. It's a very modern company. It's using all of the IT and all of the tools that are at its disposal, both in the manufacturing and in the spreading the message. And
agreed. And we tried to be super open as well. And I think one of the nice things for myself certainly is the Super Seed has been super successful, this one, and we've broken the back of the pre-orders now. All the VIP tier customers have had their watches. Most of the early birds have had their watches now as well, and we're moving on to the kind of final 2 tiers. And we get, quite rightly, the odd email from someone saying, "Oh, I've ordered my watch X months ago or whatever. I'd like an update. Where's my watch?" It's only natural. We're human. When you pay for something and you're excited about it, you want it. And everyone's super nice. You get the odd person that maybe is a bit like, maybe can I have it soon? All of those guys, though, like the lovely thing is they're actually emailing us back once they get it. A lot of companies I've ever worked for, once the customer's away, you never hear from them again. Our customers are actually coming back and going, "Do you know what? I'm really sorry. I know I was hassling you quite a lot for my watch. I was just super excited, but I've got it now. I can't believe how good it is. It's absolutely amazing." And that goes from folk where maybe this is the most expensive watch they've ever purchased.
Yeah. Because
the first watch. Yeah. Or even folk who I know have got some pretty punchy collections, it has to be said, are like, this watch, in terms of the Super Seed, has become one of their favourite daily wears because it's just a super wearable, genuinely well thought out product. Is it perfect? No, but no watch ever is.
Yeah, the transparency, the honesty that you put across is now paying dividends. And also the fact, if you allow me, that you don't take yourself too seriously as a brand, being very serious operations that we explained, but you don't take yourself too seriously. Even when you launched when Horage launched the first tourbillon, famously on the dial you wrote "handmade" as a reminder of and as a Mickey taking a little bit on the fact that you would expect a tourbillon of that category being over the 50K easily. Whereas with intelligence and using industrial economies of scale, you managed to offer something that, without judging, the rest is
absolutely
available for collectors.
We like to try. I guess the trick is we're trying to demystify it. I think there's, not just in the watch world, so much in this world these days is all smoke and mirrors, and it's a narrative that they want to make you believe in. Actually, quite often the real story is more interesting. Quite frankly, it's like when you watch how things are actually made, and when you watch the big toys that you have to make some parts. Sometimes watching the big toys make the parts is the fun part, and that's what we found. Like, we've got folk going, "Oh, we thought it was just a guy with a little file making it, but it's not. It's some big lump of a modern CNC machine." And I don't think one's better than the other. They're just different.
And we totally agree with that. No, Johnny, from the beginning, we said we're never going to project the lifestyle image of, luxury watchmaking. We're never going to project the bottle of champagnes, the supercars and all of that, because the real stories are much more fascinating than any alternative artificial reality that you can create around them just based on the fact that you can or can't afford something. So it's amazing. I believe we closed the circle with these gentlemen, and it's been a little bit over the time that normally we give ourselves, but I thought it was very valuable. Johnny, thank you so much for organizing this with us and for us. Johnny, our editor from Ireland, big thank you as always. And David, thank you a lot for being our guest. I hope very soon we'll be able to organize something in London together as well for our collectors to meet you, to see the pieces to get, in real life, maybe with a red bar. I mean, there's so many things we can do together.
No, absolutely. And, obviously we have a world tour, or should I say a UK then Asia tour coming up for this watch, and we will have an event in London come May the 18th. Anyone that's listening to this, if you're in London and you want to come along, please do drop Pietro a line, drop ourselves a line, lostintime@horage.com. And if you fancy coming along, drop us an email and we can possibly see you there as well. Pietro will be there hopefully on the night as well, and we can talk to you there. And I'm sure, no doubt, Pietro, we will have some events. Thank you very much, guys, for having us on and let us talk about the stuff we do. It's very much appreciated, the time.
Yeah, it's been brilliant. Very enjoyable.
Fantastic. Get in touch with me or Johnny if you are interested in the subscription that happens, this early bird subscription that happens this week. And we'll be in touch, David, I'm sure, and see you very, very soon.
Good. Take care, guys.
Okay, thank you. All the best. Thank you, everyone.